Embrace it. Embrace it.
Now I'm just curious if your Instagram's gonna go live because I hit live.
Let's see. I'll
Yeah. That's the only reason I went live now. Fuck it.
I witness suckling at the chaos.
Witness me.
Witness me. Mediocre.
Let's see. It's saying connect to streaming software. I'm here. So I don't know I don't know. Yeah. Whatever.
Instagram is weird. But those of you guys that are joining the live stream, we're trying to figure out technology. Just a bunch of old dudes with kids.
The struggle's real.
Struggle bus.
Yep.
So there goes all the formalities. If you guys can't read or you're not watching this, you're listening to it. If you're Stevie Wonders, one of these, we've got Jordan with us today. I think it's appropriate. Everybody knows who we are, and if they don't know who we are, we can mention it later on. I think since you're the guest in our spot, I know we're also live on your spot, but explain a little bit about Jordan. Explain a little bit about A Better Way 2A. More importantly, not that we don't care about you, but I think
listen. I'm way less entertaining and way less interesting than A Better Way 2A. But Better Way 2A is just about trying to make the gun community more chill in general, like with people from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all political leanings and whatnot. We tend to focus more of our energy on making it welcoming for people from the LGBTQ community, women, people of color, and whatnot. I mean, it's we went out of the gate with this, like we are going to make it. End goal here is to make gun control a political death sentence for politicians by getting so many people involved in the gun community that their constituents all own guns and everybody understands the nuances of the problems and nobody wants gun control because they don't see that as a realistic solution to the problems that they are being fed. We're just trying to make the gun community and gun culture more open and accepting of people from, regardless of who you are and what makes you tick.
So, what got you started on this? Like, was there one thing that happened, or was there a series of events that just woke you up and you're like, oh, we could do this differently?
Yeah, so a couple years after the Pulse nightclub shooting, I had put my information out on this this website called Operation Blazing Sword, and what it was a way for members of the LGBTQ community to get in touch with allies or other members of the community who were knowledgeable about firearms, and then teach them how to shoot, essentially. But it was a way for them to essentially vet the instructors beforehand, knowing that they were knowing beforehand that they were not going to be judged or like made to feel uncomfortable in the gun course. So I wasn't an instructor or anything like that at that point. I just put myself out there as a way to tell people like, hey, if you want to talk about guns, you want to learn more, come find me. I ended up my first students that I taught were a gay couple from a couple streets over, a couple towns over from me. And I learned so much from them. I learned that there was this, as a straight cis, like white dude, I'm not used to having this experience where I don't feel welcome coming into a place. And they essentially told me, they were concerned that if they were to just take a class with somebody, that there's a chance that they would not be welcome there. And I was blown away. I was like, I don't understand how that could be, so I made it my mission to overtly tell people from marginalized backgrounds, like, there's a place for you here. There's a place for you in the gun community. And there's more and more people who are willing to help you, because the right to protect yourself and the right to do so without fear of, people who supposedly are on the same side as you, gatekeeping and making you feel unwelcome, and even going as far as like we see now, making like overt threats. It's ridiculous. So it started out with that. It's evolved into, just making the gun community more chill in general. We typically find ourselves defending or being more outspoken against certain populations, because those are the ones that seem to be in the news and seem to be attacked like disproportionately higher than other groups of people. But really, it's just about, like, regardless of your politics, regardless of your background, there's a space for you here. And that was my goal going into this, was have that be the idea that people have when they go to the gun community. I don't want people to think like, I need a gun to protect myself, but I'm worried about what I'm going to experience when I get there. And that's hearing them say that is really what galvanized me to start this, and to make the connections that I've made. And it's been a great time. I've met some of my best friends doing this, and I'm blown away by the amount of people who are on the same page, and who want that to be a reality for everybody also. So
Yeah. Well, fuck it. There's already comments that want to start some shit. So let's fucking go that
was
way.
quick.
Yeah,
You must have a dedicated fan base following you around.
There's always, and I, the way that I see people like this is like, there's always going to be people who have had negative personal experiences that help that shape their worldview in a way that makes it very difficult for people with more how should I say this, more like big tent strategies to make them feel safe. Like this person has a valid point. What I said was like, there are the right is, well, it's a point, it's not a valid point, but essentially what I said was like,
point.
yeah, essentially what I said was like, you have more in common with the people on the right than you do with like the top 1%. And like, if you went and talked to your neighbors, you'd find that like most of us agree on the same stuff. It's just how we decide to get there that's going to be different.
This is a bit our biggest, well, for me anyways, my biggest issue. I think more of an issue for me than it is for Isaac, just because I don't care about the feels. I just care about, like, let's just get along. Let's just fucking, we're too complex as human beings individually to be worried about do I align with you 100% or not 100%. And I think in Colorado anyways, we were one of the very first groups that had a gay night, one of the very first groups.
Gay disco night.
No,
I'm just kidding. There was no disco.
There's no disco.
Did it just turn into disco?
Isaac wanted it to be a gay disco
Turn
night.
into disco at the end.
and you get a lot of shit from both sides, because the very next day you're gonna go with the politicians that maybe said something 13 years ago, and it's just like, listen, like, I don't know. I just know I'm a person who wants all of this shit to not be political. I just want you to be able to defend yourself at the end of the day, and it's really tough to do that, because you kind of have to. It's not even, I'm not even friends with a lot of people that you think I'm friends with. They just happen to be part of the circle, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's tough to let people know who are looking for issues. I don't know what the situation here is. You know it better than I do, but I get this a lot, right? I'm a Mexican. And it comes up a lot. I'm trying to annoy a lot of humans by saying that I'm a Mexican a lot, but I'm also not. But I'm also not one that looks for racism. So like, if I go into a room full of white people, I'm not constantly like, which one's the racist? And
because know they all are.
All of you motherfuckers.
I don't have to guess.
All of you guys. So I don't go looking for that stuff.
Wait, is
So
that like walking into a room and not being able to tell who the asshole is?
kind of,
Walk
I
into a room and
guess.
you don't know who the racist is, it's you?
Well, I don't know, because it'd
I
be
hope not.
weird.
I hope not.
It'd be weird. It'd be weird there. I
It
just
would
don't go
be. It would
looking
be.
for it, and I don't make it a mission to go point out the stuff. I'm just there for whatever my objective is. Like if I'm there for tacos, I'm there for tacos.
I
And
hear
if
ya.
I'm there for my kids' game, I'm there for my kids' game. And if I'm there to teach a class, I'm there to teach my class. Like it's life is way too complex for me to start worrying 100% about this stuff. But I get it. All at the same time, I get it why some people, because of experiences, feel like they need to be in a certain place or space or whatever you want to call it. So I think Guns for Everyone has done a really good job at that. But it's really tough to convey the nuance. You and I had this very brief conversation where you messaged me back when I posted the thing, and I was like, yeah, it's really tough to get all the nuance out in 2
Yeah.
seconds. It's really difficult, but that's what people do. And I would imagine that that's probably what's going on here. Is you
Oh,
probably
for
said
sure.
something and the nuance was not grasped and taken
I have the
completely out of
thing
context.
right here. I essentially just said, like, it's not going to be politicians, corporate execs, or media personalities showing up to pull people out of the rubble. It's going to be us, ordinary people, yada, yada, yada. Essentially, like, the vast majority of us want the same things. And, I even went in to clarify that there's not to say there aren't ideological battles to be fought. But
Yeah.
like I said, people who have negative experiences that, like, truly hurt them to on a core level, I don't expect to engage in good faith 100% of the time on social media, which is a cesspool of people like not engaging in good faith. So
Correct.
I don't take any of that stuff personally.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah, I think that people tend to align with what their true goals are, even if they don't say what their goal is. They will see the things that align with their goal. So if you've got a handful of people out there across the political spectrum, from far right to far left, who just have anger and hate in their heart, and they just want to lash out, they're just going to see hate everywhere else. That's all they're going to perceive from anything Edgar says, anything I say, anything you say. They're just going to perceive that. So there's nothing you really do about that. You can't reach that person in a public way. You might be able to reach them on a personal level, but you're never going to reach them.
Well, and that's the thing. Exactly. I think people, lowering your expectations for the discourse that you think you're able to have on social media will go a long way to mitigate the frustration you're going to feel while engaging in this space. Because I've had some excellent conversations with people in public, like in person, about this stuff. People who I disagree with on a multitude of topics, but when you're in person and you can see the person's mannerisms and their body language, they feel that they're able to see that you're sincere and you empathize with them. It's much harder to do that online, which is, I partly think that it's engineered that way, because if we could all, understand each other and get along, then the algorithm would have to figure out a new way to make us hate each other. And
yeah. So we've already pissed off one side, or maybe you pissed off one side.
I guess. We're constantly in the middle, man. It's awesome.
Let's try to piss off the other side. There has been a bunch of gun bills proposed in Colorado this legislative session. Nothing new since 2021. This has been kind of a regular thing. And I'm in some text group, and there was a conversation brought up, like, we need to engage the liberals in protest, in calling representatives and whatever, which I think is important. Like, let's get away from the label of what political background you are and say, hey, if you care about guns, we need to talk to our representatives. We need to let them know how they feel. But within the text group, it was pretty rabidly anti-liberal in the conversation. It was like, there was clearly this tone of like, these are not human beings. They're just tools, And I was like, I'm not even going to engage in this conversation with you guys, even though I agree on what we need to do. Like, I don't even want to be part of this group, and it's not because I don't agree with maybe some of the things that we all maybe agree on. It's because I just don't. I don't have anything to say to somebody who just treats people that way, you know.
Mhm.
And I'm not trying to like moralize because I've done this myself. Like,
Oh, dude, the
I've
group
been that
chats are
person,
brutal.
you know. But I think I'm looking at it from the idea of building consensus, and how can you possibly try to build consensus when you're freely just denigrating the people that you're supposed to be building consensus with? At least
Yeah.
just keep your shit to yourself, you know. At least just keep it to yourself and say, hey, what's a viable strategy to reach out to these people and remind them that testimony's coming up, that representatives need to be contacted, you know. And it's both sides. It's both sides that do it, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to lead to any real consensus building and strategizing on this issue if
But
people are just going to be like that.
But with that, I guess I would ask you is how have you been? Because I think you're relatively successful at this, even if you've pissed off one or two, which is good.
Mhm.
That's a good sign. How have you been successful? What's worked for you in trying to get to that point where it's just like, listen, you neocons,
Mhm.
and you commies or whatever the fuck we want to call each other. We like guns.
Yeah.
Like we like guns, and we're tired of us being victimized by the politicians because of guns. Guns keep this group safe, and it keeps this group safe, and it keeps your family safe, and it keeps us autonomous. So, how have you been successful in delivering that message? Where it's just like you guys both are full of shit here. Like we need to come together, and I don't know if that's what you think you do, but like at least that's what I see you do.
That's what I think. I mean, I think I do. Wait, you're talking to
Yeah, you're talking to
myself
Jordan,
or
right?
Yeah, Jordan.
Okay.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Isaac sucks at
Uh,
that.
Obviously. Send help.
I some days I think I do that. Other days I it's like inside me there are two wolves, the kind that wants to bring everybody together, and the kind that just wants to like throw like a metaphorical hand grenade into the room and leave. Not like in my own room, but like, you know, especially engaging in bad faith with gun control supporting liberals. It's tough sometimes, or like transphobic conservatives. There's like two sides of that. But you know, honestly, just being genuine and showing people through your actions through our actions, I think that like this is not a fly by night thing. This is not a grift. If it was a grift, I'd be making more money. You know, like if just showing up consistently and having the same consistent message, the people who are going to be open to seeing why you're here and whether or not you're genuine are going to see that. And the ones like this person here, it's going to be exponentially harder, if not impossible, to reach people like that, regardless of how you present yourself. And you know, in the beginning, I would get hung up on people like this for a long time, for like days. You can ask Andrew, my co-host. He started saying that I had rejection sensitive dysphoria or something like that, and which I think is just a term for like I don't like when people are upset with me. Yeah. Yeah. And like everybody's sensitive to rejection. Like nobody likes that. I don't know. Blame my middle school self, but got rejected all the time. But like now, you know, you just after dealing with people for so long, there are so many people who I'm so grateful and fortunate to interact with who are genuinely interested and genuinely want to help and be helped. And that, you know, I can tell that what we're doing is making some sort of difference, and at least our intentions are clear. It might not always be clear in the outcome, where, you know, like sometimes we mess up, sometimes we say things and do things where it's like, I could have said that a little bit better, or I could have, you know, navigated this unfamiliar territory a little bit better. Like I'm only human, and I've made mistakes, and I will continue to make mistakes, I'm sure. But I think the intent is there, and I think just showing that you do that, like it's tough jumping into a scene and being like, hey, I'm here to help, nobody's going to believe you. Of course not. Like, because there's so many bad actors out there that are just looking for clickbait, that are just looking to get reactions on camera, or just looking to, you know, have like their gotcha moment and then leave and go back to their own following. I don't blame people for not trusting what we do at face value, but you know, I think it's and I also don't want to ride my laurels. Like, there are plenty of people who do that and like, hey, look at everything I've done. That's also not good. You have to continuously show up and continuously do things.
Yeah, and I think that last part that you said, for me anyways, is huge, because we've seen this before. I would say there's only a handful of groups that still exist that are kind of in this space where I don't know if I would even put Guns for Everyone in that space, just because we're super fucking neutral. Like, we don't like Republicans, we don't like Democrats, and I don't think you could ever like go back and be like, oh, look at him in 2011 he said yay for this politician. I don't really think you can go back and say that. We've just been super neutral. But there's always been small organizations, like the Pink Pistols was pretty big for a while, and they were kind of in that space of not necessarily liberal, but more liberals than not. There's the liberal gun owners that also exist, and I think they're pretty huge. I think it's unfair to call them small and kind of going away. Liberal Gun Club is kind of popping up, but there's been a lot of things that popped up that look promising for humans who were not necessarily conservative, but still like guns.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's tough. I don't know if it's a messaging thing. I don't know if the comments have anything to say. I don't know if you've learned anything about like why is it so difficult for these groups to stay alive. Is it just energy? Is it support? Because there's a fuck ton of you guys, and I know you may not be a liberal or a conservative. We're not. I'm just saying.
Listen, I'm not like an overtly conservative gun owner. So from the outside, I look like a liberal, which is it's just the way that politics are now. If you're not one, you're the other. That's why I was like, I laughed when you named it.
Correct. Yeah,
liberals and guns. I was like, whatever. At this point,
and we'll definitely get to that for sure. We'll definitely get to that. But it just seems like these groups were just like, we're not your stereotype gun owner, but we're still gun owners. Any theories or understanding why that they just don't make it as much?
I think a lot of it is like, well, at least early on, you know, I would say within the last 10 years, the non-traditional gun owners community, and I use that term because it's more than just politics. It's everything, you know, has grown. And I think if you were a group that started out 10 years ago, or even over the last 5 years, or like outside of that 5 years, it was really hard to gain a following and like large enough, especially if you were relying on their monetary support to be run, to sustain yourself. And you know, not to mention burnout is huge. You know, I would not be able to do this if it weren't for my wife. I know if it weren't for the amazing group of people that I've been fortunate enough to meet through this, who like, I have friends who, you know, through this, who I've met in person once. I have some that I've never met in person. And then I have friends of mine, you know, like Andrew, the co-host, or Tally, this girl that just randomly decided to come show up and shoot with us in the woods, like at a Woodland Brutality event, and who had never met us before, and was like, yeah, I'll stay in the same house as a bunch of guys that seem cool on the internet. Like, you need, dude, I'm serious. Like, and she's the coolest fucking person ever.
It's the mustache.
But yeah, exactly. Because this has never deceived anybody.
Never.
0 mugshots with guys with mustaches. But like, you know, that's really it. Is I think when you have, and I'm fortunate enough to have a full-time job, so I don't rely on this monetarily. So when the money's not there, I can still focus on the mission. Or a lot of people, you know, when the money's not there, they can't do anything, and they can't sustain themselves, and they're worried about bills. And you know, I think burnout is huge. I think not having a support network I've only recently just started leaning on other people to do things, and it is like a weight off my shoulders. You know, my wife will just see me spiraling sometimes, and I think if I wasn't so like ADHD and just used to the sound of bees in my head, like it would not have lasted this long. So I think that's huge for people getting into this that don't realize like how overwhelming it can be, and especially if they don't set up like a healthy boundary to where, like I need to take a break in order to recollect myself and recenter and refocus, because it's easy to get salty. It's easy to get, cynical. I need to stop myself from tweeting past midnight because there's nothing good that happens after that. But yeah, I think that's huge. I think that's huge. You're seeing more groups now pop up because there is so many more people to like come who are looking for that kind of stuff. So it's just better now. And yeah, like Elgato just said, money, time, and burnout is the biggest factor, especially when you don't monetize it. It becomes very hard to choose sacrifice for the community over your own ability to pay bills. 100%.
So there's definitely a large infrastructure that exists to create money in the 2A space for the, we'll say, stereotypical gun group. Like if Edgar and I had more tattoos and maybe we're a little bit stronger with some better beards, we probably we would, I mean, it would not be difficult. It's not difficult for some of these, we'll call them startups, but some of these groups that kind of form. I watch a lot of YouTube channels and I watch them start in infancy and then explode in growth.
Mhm.
And it's totally money behind it. They start doing, their own native ads. They start selling their own shit. They start making and selling their own shit. Like there's all this money.
No native ads. Yeah.
I don't really see that on the left side of the equation. And I wonder if it's just because nobody's really identified a market, or if there just isn't as much money in that space or what. But money is so critical to keeping any organization going, even a nonprofit, even a small mom and pop, even just Edgar and Tisha and myself and the work that we've done for the last 15 years. Like it takes a lot of money to do what we do, and so I wonder if that's part of it too, is just there's not the financial infrastructure on that side of the market, I guess.
Well, the elephant in the room with this is that people in this side, and maybe understandably so, like I get it to a degree, but the kind of asshole in me is like, well, we need to push through that. Is this what you said sounds prettier, so I'm just going to say it that way. The non-traditional gun owner. If you look at the social medias, they're also the ones hiding their face. They're also the ones behind fake names. They're also the ones behind this veil, and so nobody sees it. So we think it's a myth. We think that there's no fucking way. There's a whole fucking slew of humans that are not neocons that own guns. There's no fucking way. And there's like, no, they exist. They're just wearing fur.
Yeah, they're
babies on
bots,
their
or they're
fucking-
exactly. They're fursuits, or they're blurring their face, or and a lot of that is not without merit though, because
Correct.
So many of these people are coming to the gun community from a place of like they've been in a position where they've feared for their lives or their family's lives, and they do so to protect their identity on the internet. And yeah, no, it doesn't help when you're trying to say like, hey, I'm a real person and I own a gun and I'm not a conservative. But the way that I always meet it is like, we got to meet people where they're at. I know a ton of people who are left leaning. I know some far left people who don't hide their faces, who also are open about owning guns. But I think
those are my favorite type of commies.
Dude, I've met some like super cool people, like Tally and I disagree on a lot politically, but she's one of my best friends in this. She posts her face all the time. She is a flaming red communist. But she's like, she's one of the people that it's like, if you go far enough left, you get your guns back.
You get your guns back. Yeah.
I just think that the overlap is so small that the people who have the money that are looking to give that money for ad revenue to left-leaning content creators don't realize that the market is where it is.
Yeah.
And it's because when you cut it down to what it is, I mean, it's just people. It's people who all buy the same thing, whether you're on the left or the right. You still use deodorant for the most part. You know, if
On
you're
the
gonna
left,
buy
not so much. On the left, not so much.
bro, I've met some conservatives who stink.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I don't know, dude. I'm 100% convinced that this full body deodorant like phase thing that we've seen, it was started by like a Bubba, like a guy on the right with his like Mosin that is
But
like
that's in the South though. That's very specific to the South in the swamps.
The swamps.
might be. I don't know. I'm a sweaty dude. If I was bigger, I'd be a proponent for full body deodorant. I just want to know where this came from. Like over the last year, I've seen full body deodorant commercials all over the place. I'm like, just wash your ass. Like I don't know, but just take a shower. But like, so like what I mean is we had Tactical Girlfriend who was excellent. She made awesome content, and she was probably the most prolific leftist gun tuber. And she was approached by one of the marketing companies. And she, I believe, and I don't want to misquote her, but I believe she declined it just based on the other people that were working with that organization also. But, you know, and that's part of it is so many people who do come into this space, you know, don't want to abandon their morals and their principles to get that bag. And I respect the hell out of that, you know. I'm not going, good old Leviathan Group, exactly. I don't want to say the company, but when we went to SHOT Show, we spoke with an optics company who is fairly new. Their CEO is an amazing dude, and you know, doesn't have like shitty closeted like racist or homophobic beliefs. And they're at the point where they're going to be very compliant eventually, and they're going to be able to open themselves up to government contracts and
why can't you say
military
Gideon
contracts.
Optics?
Because it's not them.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And we were talking about it, like, you know, this morality where you know, they're like, do we do this? Like, do we accept these kind of contracts? And my answer is absolutely. Like, if we want to get companies and creators up to the same level that these, like, and I'm not using this term lightly, but like these bigoted, like right-wing creators, not all of them are bigoted, but there are some that are like really openly, like Lucas Botkin, super open about his beliefs and like super popular.
To be fair, everybody hates that guy.
He's got people who don't hate him.
That's true.
But
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I don't even know who that is, but it sounds awesome.
Yeah. You know,
oh my God.
Arms, you know, the TRX Arms holsters and all that.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Never mind.
I'm probably the only gun person that's entrenched this much into guns. Is like, I don't know who the fuck you're talking about. Like,
dude, I constantly find myself there whenever Andrew mentions like a gun tuber or someone that, like, the first couple times we had Fudbusters on, they were talking about all kinds of stuff, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And Andrew's like, this is big news, man. What are you talking about? I was like, I don't know. For as much time as I spend on the internet, I don't watch a lot of GunTube, and I never really have. But yeah, you're fortunate enough. You don't worry, you're not missing much. But like, there, you know, in order to get to that level, people are going to have to build bridges with people that they don't necessarily agree with 100%. Otherwise, you know, we're going to stay like in the shadow. And
we had that conversation about the purity test. I belong to the Firearms Injury Prevention Initiative here in the state of Colorado. And so far publicly, nobody's mentioned much about me, but FIPI is ran by CU here in the state of Colorado, which anything attached to a university is already seen as the devil and bad and all that stuff. So, but we had this conversation about with one of their employees, Matt Wettenkamp, veteran, good guy. Suicide prevention is his big thing, especially amongst veterans. And one of the things we talked about it is how it's so difficult for us to get plugged in because people just want that purity test. Like I want it to be 100% or else. It's just like it can't be that way though. Like there's literally nothing on this earth. We're on a platform right now, and I don't give a fuck who it is. Somebody at that company donated to somebody you don't agree with. So, like, do we just shut the shit down? Do we just not say anything? Do we just not send the message? Do we not talk about suicide prevention because this person donated money to Clinton back in 90 whatever 94? Like, do we not do that? Like, is it the mission, or are you worried about being 100%? So I get the morals thing, and I get the like I can't be a sellout. But unfortunately, I'm an anarchist. Me personally, I'm an anarchist. I 100% fuck the government. But like, how do I live life? I have to be on the road. I have to fucking go get groceries and pay the tax. And like, how the fuck do I live an anarchist world if I can't? It doesn't exist. So like, this is where I'm at. So unfortunately, I have to have a conversation with the person that I don't agree with 100%.
I would say that in the 15 years that you, Edgar, and I have been doing what we do, and in the 100,000 students and thousands of classes, we couldn't pass a purity test between the two of us. Like we could not. I could not come up with a purity test.
You shouldn't be able to. Pass. Like. Yeah, no, but you shouldn't be able to. Like that's the thing. People are nuanced. People have different beliefs. Like if oh my God, like my old Facebook before I got my current job, if I could go back in time and look at the stuff that I said back then, it was cringy. Like it was not good at all. And it was just I was a misinformed and weird like person. And it is what it is. I'm still misinformed and weird, but like at least I talk to people now. At least I go outside and touch grass.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, purity tests are great in a lab, but not with people.
So, like while you were talking about these influencers and the market and everything, let's just take a large company that does a lot of advertising. Let's take USCCA as an example, because clearly they are heavily in the influencer space. They're also in the direct marketing. They're also in the, advertiser space. They do it all. Realistically, what line do you think that they could step close to that would bridge this gap without destroying their primary customer base? Like, and this is just kind of a thought experiment to just say, like, take a big company that does it all and pick some influencer or pick some avenue of advertising and say, where could they start to build a bridge that would actually be successful in promoting their product and not destroying their brand within the industry?
It's tough, man, because things are so polarized now that if you asked me 10 or 15 years ago, I'd say the easiest way to give the impression that you are, and I use the term inclusive, I don't mean like radically inclusive, like people think
inclusive
all of
means
us
money,
are.
right? Like that's
it's just, listen, if you think about it, but if you were to ask me that, then the 10 years ago, I'd say just say that gun rights are for everybody, because you'd have people from all walks of life, probably more on the right, because think about it. Like you've had conservatives and libertarians for years saying everybody should be able to own a gun, everybody should be able to own a machine gun, everybody should be able to buy a tank if you want to. And now all of a sudden that, like, listen, trans people, gay people, women, black people have always owned guns, but now that it's like a thing, now that it's like a selling point for people, and it's become popular enough to where they
I noticed
can't
you didn't mention Mexican, so jeez,
you just lost all your street cred.
Remember the Alamo.
Yeah, fucking remember that shit. You fucking remember that shit.
No, hell yeah, man, hell yeah. Everybody, like every demographic has owned guns forever, but now that it's to the point where they can't, it's not like a mythical thing that they can just ignore. We've seen that openness and you know, we've seen their mentality towards, and I say they as a blanket statement, not all conservatives, not all libertarians, obviously. We've seen their blanket statements for, you know, everybody owning guns get much smaller. And even, you know, like, I'm not a religious person, but I see these Jesus commercials that are like, Jesus would have helped so-and-so, or Jesus was kind, Jesus was caring, you know, and I think, like, yeah, that makes sense. You know, that's, and those commercials get destroyed by like religious fundamentalists on the internet, saying like, oh, this, they're you know, they're quoting Bible verses and all this stuff. And I feel like if USCCA did something like that today, where they just said, for example, we came out straight out of the gate just saying guns were for everybody. One of the first things people asked us was, what about pedophiles? Like, what terminally online universe do you live in where, like, that's the thing that you're going to ask the company who's like, guns are for everybody? Do you think about pedophiles that much, where you're
as the company whose name is Guns for Everyone, we've gotten, we get those questions all
I'm
the
sure,
time.
and it's wild, because what they're asking is, it's not, they're not asking what about pedophiles, they're asking what about the people that they conflate for pedophile, they conflate as pedophiles, trans people, gay people, you know, whatever the boogeyman is of the day. And they want you to say, well, no, not like, I always say, no, convicted pedophiles, absolutely not. It's a violent crime. It's a felony, and you should not have gun rights. And well, but what about the population that is in my head the most apt to do that? And my first thought is, what, priests, like uncles? Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah. So Wraith just said everyone is trying to bait you, and that's like this absurdist argument. You know, what about this person? What about that person? Obviously, if I am in a room with a dangerous person who has a plan to hurt me, I'd rather that person not have a gun.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are limits to who I would want to have a gun. That doesn't mean I agree with legislation about it. That doesn't mean that I am pro this or pro that, pro red flag. Like, look, if I'm having a fight with somebody and they're trying to kill me, yeah, we can draw a line right there and say, I don't want that person to have a gun when they're trying to kill me with it. But how are we going to have a conversation around that? How are we going to grow the population of people who care about gun rights by going straight to the, well, obviously you're a hypocrite. You know, you say guns to everyone, but you just told me about somebody you don't want to have a gun. Like, that's not a valid argument. That's not a way to have a conversation. And so I agree with Wraith. That's a bait. You know, that's 100% a conversation to have. And I'm not really interested in having any kind of conversation with somebody who is only interested in destroying what you're trying to build. Now, if there's like some big issue around, let's say there is a conversation to be had about people who, and both sides have this feeling about the other side, that both sides think that the other side is trying to take away all their rights.
Yes.
And then we say, but I want everybody to have a gun. So you say, well, you want the other side who wants to take away my rights to have guns so that they can take away my rights. And I don't look at it that way. I look at it, well, like, I'm responsible for myself. I possess the tools to defend myself and the people I care about. And I don't want anybody telling me that I can't have those tools. And so that, I think there's a constructive argument to be had in that way, as long as both people are arguing in good faith. Because we talk about communists, and there are people on the right who are going to say, well, the communist wants to take away all your rights and give it all to the state. And how is that, you know, going to work with gun rights? Like, I don't really know, but I know that the communists who cares about their guns, might be willing to call the legislator and tell them, don't vote yes on this legislation, who might be willing to show up at the Capitol and tell the legislator to their face that guns are important to protecting themselves and within their own community. And that's all I really want from that person. I want, instead of 2 people being at the Capitol, I want 4 people being at the Capitol, you know.
This 100%. This, sorry if you
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, and this is the thing that, you know, for firearms policy coalition has its issues, but for as flawed as they are, I give them credit for back in the day. They were a friend of the court. I forget the Latin term, but for a hearing in Texas that was for abortion, because they saw the writing on the wall that the precedent set by that bill was then going to be used to restrict gun rights from people. And they got torn apart for doing that because people couldn't see the forest past the trees. They were like, oh, I'm never giving them money again because they support abortion. It had nothing to do with abortion in the long run. It had everything to do with I forget what the precedent was, but it was like, it was glaringly obvious if you just pulled your head out of your ass. And that should be apparent for people who know that FPC has never once taken a stance on abortion. Why would they do it so now if it wasn't in their best interest or in the best interest of the people who give them money? And the same goes for that. It's the easiest thing in the world for me to just accept that I don't agree with everybody, but I don't think that because I don't agree with them, they should have fewer rights than I have. Because as soon as that standard gets, because listen, we have a new president every 4 years. We have a new administration every 4 years, maybe every 8 years, maybe with this new one every 16 years. I don't know, or never again, whatever. But like as soon as the other side gets the power, they're going to use that same standard against you. So if you're the first one to say, this group of people shouldn't have gun rights because I'm declaring them mentally ill, or this group of people shouldn't have gun rights because they don't believe in personal property or private property or whatever, they're going to use that same standard against you. And then you're the fucking asshole who made it possible in the first place. Mm-hmm. So regardless of what you think of people, regardless of whether you agree with them or not, just to say that, hey, the playing field should be equal and rights should be equal amongst like across the board is not a radical concept. And it blows my mind at how short-sighted people are when they see that.
I had this I've talked about this before, but it's in 2002 and 2003 as we started ramping up to the Iraq War, and we saw the rise of the neo-security state in the United States. It was a heavily right-leaning base that was in support of that. Like at first it was everybody, everybody was afraid we're going to get attacked again. And everybody was cool with, troops looking through your trunk at the airport. And then as it started to get further and further away from September 11th, and we started talking about invading a country, it was the liberals, it was the Democrats who, and I mean more the people, not the celebrities, not the politicians, the people who were standing up and saying, hey, this is wrong, we shouldn't be doing this. And the right was like, you love terrorism, you want to suckle on a terrorist, and like you don't love America enough. And there were people who were raising the alarm like, hey, if you give this government this power, you cannot predict whose hands it will be in 4 years, in 8 years from now. And as soon as Obama became president, he inherited this security state and this bureaucratic state and went after some Republican groups. He used his administration to go after some Republican groups. And then we get Trump, and we see this now entrenched security state and entrenched political bureaucracy go after the hero of the right. And they're like, you can't do that. You can't. Oh, yeah, you can do that. You let them do that since 2001. And it's the same with the gun rights. If you pick your argument based on who you think should or should not have guns, all you're doing is creating tools that will be used against you in the future. And
without a doubt,
that people don't see that.
So this brings kind of to the next point, unless you guys had anything else, is then how do we encourage our Democrat homies to be a little bit more vocal with their politicians? Because the problem that we see is, and I get it, we can't change how humans are, but we have to at least try and tell them how important this subject is. Because you'll have a lot of Democrats who are like, well, it's because I like this politician because he may not like guns or she may not like guns, but look at the other stuff that I agree with, not understanding that realistically, the only thing that keeps me free from bad guys, the government, from oppression in general is the gun. So I can agree with the other slew of political or controversial topics, but the gun, we must admit, is the only tool in history that has kept people from being oppressed. That's the only tool. So how do we get Democrats? How do we get liberals? How do we get these humans to get, like, I get it, you have other topics that are important to you, but without guns, those other topics in the long run kind of mean nothing.
The same way you do it with conservatives. And this is what, like, you know, that Dingleberry that said the question in the first place doesn't understand. You know, this isn't saying that you need to go and be best friends with somebody who is your enemy and wants you to not exist, but humanizing these issues to people who have zero perspective on them, who don't live outside their bubble, who only talk to people in their within their gated community, within their chat room, or within their, I'm dating myself with that term, or within their group text, or, you know, like, humanizing the issues to people who have never had whether it's a positive or any experience with person who believes in what you believe in, is the way that you get them to stand up for something that you believe in. Going to someone who's never met, you know, I'm a Jewish. I was born Jewish. I'm not religious, but going to people with this whole thing going on in Israel and Palestine right now and saying, like, not every Jew is a Zionist. I'm one of them. Like, I don't agree with what's going on in with what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. To somebody who up until that point has never met a Jewish person who denounced the genocide going on in the Middle East, shows them that not all Jews are the same. A person on the left going up to a conservative and saying, no, I believe in gun rights for everybody, including you, even if you're an asshole, shows that person that not everyone on the left wants to take their guns. Going up to a liberal and saying, like, hey, you know, that person that takes care of your kid at the daycare, who you love because she loves your kid, well, that person's trans, and if this legislation goes through, they're going to be without a job, or they're going to be unable to access their medication or something like that. And you know, humanizing those kind of things for those people and making it real for them, like making them have a personal connection with the issue, regardless of what the issue is, whether it's guns, whether it's civil rights, whether it's you know, the ability to renew your Costco membership online, like whatever it is, humanizing that to people who otherwise have had zero experience on the topic is the way that you get them to stand up for that. And whether that's liberals, whether that's conservatives, whether that's leftists, it really doesn't matter. It's just, you see so many of these liberals who are apathetic to the guns, not the anti-gun, like moms demand action kind, but the ones who just don't care one way or the other, make up the majority of the voting base. And they are reached by people who are anti-gun by using children, using school shootings, using empathy and emotion to make them feel bad enough to go and vote against guns. And that's not to say that, you know, we should do that, but to say, like, hey, listen, like, I absolutely empathize with people who have lost their kids in a school shooting, or somebody who's been the victim of any kind of gun violence. But the proposal that they are putting forward is, one, not going to fix the problem, and is two, it's going to make it much more difficult for me to protect myself and my family. And you like me as a person and you care for me, please don't vote for that. That's huge. Like, and you can't do that online. It's really hard to do that online, which is why, you know, like the person who was commenting on the first bit of it was saying, like, we need to go and talk to people. And no, like I said in the beginning, it's not about talking to people who want to put your head on a pike. It's about talking to people who are your neighbors, who you have personal relationships with, who you just need to put a little bit of effort in to reach on something. And it's a snowball effect. You get that ball rolling, and then the next thing you know, and I know this because I've seen it. The next thing you know, that person who you spoke to one time about this issue told two of their friends, and now one of those friends is much closer to the issue than they were personally, so they're able to be like, yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you, and validate that. And it's like it's a cyclical, compounding effort. It just takes a little bit of effort in the beginning. And for these people who say, I don't want to leave my own bubble and talk to people who might disagree with me, or who might not want to be my best friend, it's self-serving. Like, I understand not everybody has the privilege to be able to do that, and I don't expect everybody to be able to, but for the ones who do, we should use it.
So I think that works on an interpersonal level. On a political level, it's a little bit different, because you have candidates who agree. You have a voter who agrees with a candidate on most issues, but maybe not on this issue. And people tend to vote party. If they're going to vote, they tend to vote party. And so that person is going to vote for somebody who doesn't align with everything that they agree with, but aligns enough that fits in the party, and they'll vote for them. So politically, I think the strategy here should be that we do not need to agree on everything in order for us to open up a line of communication to strategize to stop an issue, and not talk about the candidates and not talk about the parties, just talk about the issue. So if there was an open line of communication from the left and to the right, or vice versa, to say, hey, you guys saw these bills coming across the desk, coming across the Senate and the House. You guys know what to do. We know what to do. Let's make the phone calls. And that doesn't, we don't have to communicate any more than that.
Yeah.
To accomplish that political goal of getting, like Jason said, getting them to see that their own base does not support this issue. Getting them to see that they're going to suffer politically if they push these issues. And because I'm all about conversations. We've had conversations with all kinds of people over the years doing this podcast, and in our classrooms and everything. And I'm all about that. And I take every opportunity to do that. But what affects legislation, especially at the state level, is when people show up and make their voices heard. And this is an important issue because it's really hard to undo the damage once the damage has been done. And there's enough people on both sides to let the politicians know that we don't want this. They just don't do anything. They're content to complain online rather than actually show up. And we've said this about our own base of gun owners, which tends to be more right-leaning. Like, hey, you want to bitch and complain about gun rights being trampled on, but you won't show up to the Capitol. You won't donate. You won't make the phone calls. You just want to sit on Instagram and complain in the comments. And so it's an issue on both sides. But I think politically, that's the avenue of keeping everybody engaged and moving in the right direction with these policies and laws.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Definitely. Show up and testify against. It doesn't take a lot. You don't have to be good at it even. Testify against the bill that you disagree with, regardless of whether it's guns or not. Just get comfortable with it enough to do it and have a conversation, or at least talk for 3 minutes reading from a script that you wrote about why you disagree with something and why you're not going to vote for that person if they support it. That's huge.
Yeah. And Elgato said that I doubt these work. The Democrats elected a second in command who is completely anti-2A. That's the business side of politics. That doesn't have to drive policy. Policy can be controlled by the people if the people do their job, if the people show up and make their voices heard as a group on policy issues. If you just stick to party, you're going to get stuck with the party's views on everything. And there's plenty of people who agree enough to vote for a Democrat, but will absolutely not support some of the policies, and the same on the Republican side. So,
there's definitely this. I think it's changing. I don't think it's changing quickly enough, though, to where we're getting a lot more. I guess you could call them JFK Democrats, ish, where it's more not so anti-gun and more willing to come out and say that they're gun owners. But I don't think there's enough to really convince their other fellow Democrats to understand why this is such an important thing. Now, blame a lot of it to the Republicans, who will say dumb shit like, well, guns for everyone, and everyone shall not be infringed, but if you come here other than by legal means, and this is when the fucking chat fucking flares up, which has been good.
Yeah, you brought a lot of people. We appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
We did.
Yeah,
yeah,
you
you
did.
guys did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sick! I'm glad.
Yeah.
So the conversation always, and you kind of hinted at this, and I think this is where the responsibility. So the Democrats have a responsibility of, and when I say Democrats, it's not even a party thing. Like, it just fucking labels. I mean, it just, I don't know what else to fucking say. You guys know what the fuck I mean. Whatever label applies to you, fucking grab it and attach it to yourself. So the Democrats have a responsibility of getting the word out more, and encouraging their friends to understand why the gun rights are so important. If you are afraid of the orange man, what fucking better tool than to have a gun to protect yourself from the orange man? The problem is
sounds like something out of a fever dream.
The 2020s,
like I took too much NyQuil and the Hat Man won't leave me alone. Except
the 2020s have been just one
orange
long
man
fever dream.
Yeah. The problem with the Republicans is they haven't been super genuine on this whole idea of shall not be infringed, because I'm seeing this as a Mexican right now. And again, I don't fall into this, but I find I am a gun person more than anything else, and it's weird to hear people who constantly yell shall not be infringed. I was like, well, you're illegal, so I need to see your legal status here.
Yeah.
Like, are you super legal? Like, are you like fucking legal?
Well, they'll say that
or...
it only applies to the Constitution, and that's where they get shall not be infringed from. But that's where, like I say, I think gun rights are human rights. I think you're right to be able to protect yourself with the same means that your oppressor has, regardless of whether that person is the government or somebody trying to mug you, is a human right. And they'll disconnect with that and say, well, no, it's a constitutionally protected right.
But that's the problem that the right has, is the right has this very, again, Isaac mentioned this, is like he may agree with you on some strategical and maybe some conceptual things within that chat group or that signal group, but all of a sudden you mention, hey, we should have more Democrats in here, and then people, well, because now you're attaching your other political views to something that shouldn't even be politicized. Like, guns should not be politicized in any way, shape, or form, but unfortunately it is, right? Like, unfortunately we've lived almost 100 years of policy around guns, and this be a right or a left thing. So I think there's responsibility on both ends. Democrats are not being vocal enough with their own base about gun ownership and how good it is. Gun ownership is a good thing. Unfortunately, there's tragic things that happen with guns, but overall, gun ownership is a positive thing. And then Republicans have to understand that you cannot be a fucking hypocrite in real time about the shall not be infringed shit.
Yeah.
This kind of comes up with it came up in the last podcast we did with Matt Wittenkamp and Dr. Michael Victoroff when we were talking about FIPPI stuff. And Victoroff was talking about guns being a uniquely a unique item in human existence. Like, there's not a single item that you can draw a one-to-one conclusion with firearms. And I think politically that could be something that transcends the idea of political party, where we say it's not, this absolutely cannot be a left-right issue, because this is not a topic that is like, it's not like taxes, it's not like foreign policy. This is an item that gives every person who possesses one the ability to protect or to harm with minimal effort and skill. And it's something that we need to, like you said, humanize around this concept of This is your ticket to your own destiny, in a unique
it's
way.
autonomy and
Mhm. And,
no,
and I think
not everybody
a lot
wants
more
that.
people
But
connect with autonomy than they do with any other political idea. Is the right to just say, hey, if I want to do this, I'm not hurting anybody. You're going to have to justify quite a bit not letting me do that thing.
100%.
Yeah. So kind of on that note, Francis is saying if we're able to bridge 2A and M4A, I don't know what M4A is.
Like a M1, like a Springfield M4A.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, we're getting a lot of good comments. Unfortunately,
I'm
we're
thinking
not used to this
M1A.
many comments. We're having a hard time responding to them all. But I wanted to kind of talk about something that happened in national politics that may provide some kind of a model for what's possible. And it's a very touchy topic because people are so charged up right now. I think it's going to be hard for people who are really upset to hear what I'm trying to say here. Oh, Medicare for all. Okay. So Trump,
Yeah, that'd be great.
being a lifelong Democrat, old school Democrat, whatever you want to call him, and then switching parties, was a pretty interesting twist, I guess, in modern politics. To not just say I'm going to switch parties, but to get like the furthest fringe of that party to become his base was pretty interesting. It was a pretty interesting switch. And then in his second election, to take somebody like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and say, you're running against me, not within the party, you're running against me from the Democrat side, and I want to invite you to become part of my administration before the election even happens, to say, I disagree with you on all of these things except this one thing. And I not only want you to come be in my administration, I want you to bring all your supporters with you on this one topic. And it was like this really interesting political move that seemed to pay off. I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but to me, it demonstrated the flexibility of being able to rally people around one particular issue to get them to act according to what they perceive their interest is around that issue. So with RFK, it happens to be health, right? You can agree with him or disagree with him, but you can't disagree that his main party or his main issue is the health of the American people. So can we get gun owners to set aside party to act as one group to complete a political mission? And if we can, how do we do that? How do we get them to enthusiastically participate together? That would be amazing.
In a perfect world, we would have ranked choice voting. Because,
which, by the way, I don't understand. So I'm not like, I honestly don't understand. Somebody wanted me to sign the petition to say we should have it on the ballot, and I was like, good luck explaining it to me in 5 minutes. I'm not signing something I don't understand it.
It's essentially
like an idiot. Like I'm an idiot.
Well, dude, I'm an idiot too. So
okay.
They say you don't really understand anything unless you can explain it to a 5-year-old. I am that 5-year-old that needed it explained to me. So I got it like a dumbed down version. And so the easiest way to describe it is a popular vote, but instead of you having, so in the way that our current system is, obviously we're a democratic republic, our representatives vote for people based on our votes, supposedly, or we elect them to vote for us. Ranked choice voting is you have multiple votes that you can cast. So say there's 5 candidates running, you can choose, like, say you want to vote for 3 of them. You choose your number 1 choice, your number 2 choice, and your number 3 choice. If your number 1 choice does not have over 50% of the votes, then your number 2 choice gets that vote. And it rolls down like that. So it ends up allowing you to vote for more nuanced candidates. So say you really want the third party to win, but if they don't win, you don't want the conservatives to win. You vote third party with your first vote. If your third party vote gets like 20% of the votes, then your third party vote goes to your second choice. And now they are going to have over 50% of the votes because of how the hierarchical voting structure works. What it does is it allows more nuanced candidates to vote or to run. I'm sorry. As it sits right now, I don't think you're going to see people working together to vote for gun rights because of how polarized politics are, because of the other bag of ass that you're going to get with that. And likewise, you know, like Medicare for all, somebody, Francis was mentioning Medicare for all. If you vote for the candidate that wants Medicare for all, you're most likely not going to be voting for the candidate who wants to expand gun rights. And it's the way things are with our polarized political dichotomy, and everyone considers a third party vote to be a wasted vote, which regardless of your beliefs on that, you know, it's I am so glad that we're done with the election because I don't have to hear people say a vote for X is a vote for Y.
Yeah,
literally not how it works. But I think in our current political environment, that's not going to happen until we have something like ranked choice voting, where people can feel like their votes are counted in a way that matters towards the people they actually want to win. And as a result of that, you'll not only be able to vote for the person you want to vote for without worrying about it being a wasted vote, but you'll have candidates that'll come out representing more nuanced views because they won't feel like they have to appeal to the base of a political party in order to get the endorsement. And so I think asking your state, asking your municipality to start doing ranked choice voting, just expanding ranked choice voting. I forget how many states do it now, but that's really the only way I see that working. Because we're going down this path of like things are just getting worse at this point. Things are getting more polarized. I think asking people on the right and the left to say like let's vote for gun rights is like would be like asking the people on the right and the left to say, well, let's vote for expanding Medicare. You know, it's just not going to happen because of all the other stuff that's going to happen. I say all the time, if Democrats dropped gun control from their platform, they'd steamroll conservatives. If conservatives dropped abortion from their platform, they'd steamroll Democrats. Like it's there's so much that people want to vote for but can't because the current political system does not make it possible for their vote to count in that way.
Yeah.
So they vote, you know, either single issue or for the person that they think is going to do the least amount of harm.
What do you think about that, Edgar?
Well,
I'm asking you because you're an anarchist who hates everybody.
Yeah, no, it's weird, but at the same time, it's to a small degree kind of how it all started, right? Like you'd cast a vote, and then number one guy would be the president, number two guy would be the vice president, and then you wouldn't have a full ticket of the same party. It'd be one or the other. If I'm not mistaken, that's how it was.
That's the way I understand it too.
With Washington, cool. and I think if we look back, it was the one with the most votes, and the other shit got top dog, and then the other one got the consolation prize, which they
which is VP really. Like
got that shitty job.
You're doing school lunches.
Here, go stand around here and sign some papers.
Yeah,
and sign some babies.
The problem with my anarchist mind is just like, no, I don't want any of that shit. I don't want the government, because if you ask me, Edgar, what about guns? How should the government take care of guns? Like, they shouldn't. How should the government take care of marriage? They shouldn't. How should the government take care of your health care? They shouldn't. How should the government take care? Because obviously they fuck it all up. Like, if the reason it's such a politicized topic is because they have fucked it up so fucking much that everybody just is so desperate for it to work. I need you to fix this because you told me you were going to fix this and you didn't fix this. Well, they're not going to fix it. They're just going to take your money and they're not going to fucking fix it. So for me, it just, I can't, I get it. Like, it sounds cool. I think in a better society like that could, if we could start all over and started with that, like, it fucking makes sense. But I think it's too far gone for us to really for me anyways, my thought is I can't trust the government anymore. I can only trust my neighbor to do what's best for me. And I think that's why that ranked shit, like it sounds awesome. It like in theory and in anarchy sounds amazing on paper. But you start scaling it and it's just like it doesn't work at a certain scale. It topples because somebody wants to take full control, and then people immediately like, we should all tax people, and like, fuck, we lost the anarchy shit. Even libertarians, right? Libertarians are now Republican.
Yeah,
like that's libertarians. At some point they're just Republicans.
Except their nominee for president. Who
I don't even know who that was.
Well, for 2024, I believe it was a socialist. If I'm not mistaken. So,
well, the Libertarian Party, ever since like the Mises Caucus, has been splintered and fucked. Like, it's just not. You've got like the Libertarian Party. I forget which state it is. The one of the southern states, like Tennessee or Alabama or something like that. They're like leftist. And then you got the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire that is like full on 14 words, like not good. And it's all over the place now.
And we have to understand, like, my parents come from a country where there's a multi-party system, because here in the US we're like, we need a multi-party system. We're like, well, you can go to Mexico and you could be fucked by 7 parties instead of 2 parties.
Instead of 2.
It's having 7 parties doesn't really make it any better, because we've seen it in Mexico. I don't follow it 100%, but my cousins are involved politically. They're constantly running for office, helping people run for office. I've had one cousin who was part of the state attorneys for the government, the Mexican government attorney general's office. He was an attorney for them, and this is back when they were like best homies with the cartels. The late 90s, and even they will tell you, it's just like having 7 different parties is now people are going to vote. Well, I like the trees, so I'm just going to vote for the tree person, and I like nothing really gets done, because now you have 2 people from the tree party and then 15 people from the gun party, and then other people and then nothing gets, because you get stalled. Because it's just like, we don't have enough votes for one side or another, and then the fucking president, or they're really the ones that kind of control everything more than whether we like it or not. It mimics more of a dictatorship at some point if you have 7 different parties with 7 different views going 7 different ways. So like, we've seen it. We've seen it not work in Mexico. We've seen it not work in other countries. So that's my issue with it. I trust my neighbor more than I trust a politician.
Yeah, and I think
I hear you.
My underinformed perspective on this is that party issues tend to be party issues because the parties want them to be party issues, not that the people want them to be party issues, but the people allow themselves to be led around to support things that they wouldn't normally support if it wasn't a party issue, or to oppose things that they wouldn't oppose. And kind of going to what Gun Website says, is there a future where gun owners' rights are off the table? Meaning where this is not really even a political issue anymore. I think that's what he means. Where it's an assumption. Like, it's an assumption that that gun ownership is a normal part of American life. It's just something we do. Not everybody does it. You don't have to do it, but nobody should be interfering with that. And I think the key to that is in participation from the people, not in trying to elect the right person. There's a lot of Republicans who are like, yay, Trump is in office. And there's still plenty of other Republicans who are like, yeah, but watch out for your gun rights, because we know what he did in his first term. Yeah. And there's a clip that's floating around.
He was playing 40 chess, man.
Yeah. Oh, he's playing 40 chess. Exactly.
Yeah, he's playing 40 chess. You just got to wait.
There's a clip that's going around. I just saw it today, and people thought it was a current clip, but it was back from 2018, where Pam Bondi, the new attorney general, is telling Trump, like, hey, we need to kind of modernize red flag laws. And Trump's like, oh, wow, sounds great. And if we keep looking to the politicians to solve this problem, it's going to get worse for everybody.
Mhm.
If you look at what is currently happening in the United States for furthering gun rights, it's all happening in the courts. It's mostly happening in the courts, and it's happening with organizations that are supported by donations from gun owners. It's lawyers and people who are good at organizing who are getting these cases up through the courts and getting the Supreme Court decision or the district court decisions. And that's where the battle's happening. The politicians aren't helping. And even the ones that are supposed to be helping aren't helping. So I think we need to have this conversation. I don't care what your political background is. I don't care what else you believe. I care if you're going to actually show up and tell your legislator to leave this issue alone and stop using your name and your party to further something that your constituents do not agree with. And we have plenty of gun owners in this state, and I know that not all of them are Republican. I know a good number of them are not Republican. If we got even a fraction of these people to consistently show up, then the politicians would respond, because they've already responded. I don't know if you paid attention to what happened with the assault weapons ban legislation this time around, but Tony Exum, who is a Democrat, who is a tenured Democrat, his seat has been pretty stable. He's not had a lot of opposition in his reelection campaigns. He was a sponsor of that bill, and by the time he got to the third vote, he pulled his name off as a sponsor and he voted against it. Wow. Because we had quite a bit of people in his district speak up and tell him, stop with this bullshit. We've got a recall effort teed up, ready to go on you if you vote for this. And there were Democrats who called him up and told him that. I know, because I went on Reddit and I asked.
Yeah, no, that's a huge thing. Is like I think I said it in the beginning of our conversation. You know, our end goal is to get as many people gun owners as possible, and by making the gun community as welcoming and as inclusive as possible, we do that because the end goal is getting to the point. And I just had a conversation with Ian Runkle about this actually when we were in SHOT Show, saying they're trying to do the same thing in Canada. He's a lawyer up in Canada. He's got a YouTube channel and whatnot. But
the guy with the long hair,
yeah, super cool guy. Saying that we want it to get to the point where an elected representative says, okay, we're going to sponsor this gun control bill, and enough people show up who voted for them to say, no. I'm a gun owner. This affects me. This, and not in a good way. This is not what I want. This is not why I voted for you. We need that. And the way that we get that is by opening up the gun community to more people. We don't do that by gatekeeping. Unless you want to fight. Everyone says like, over my cold dead hands. Yeah. Okay. Unless you actually want to die, because that's what's going to happen. Everybody has this fantasy that they're going to make a last stand with their boys against the not the cops though, because they don't want to shoot cops. They think like it's going to be the military, and the military is going to be run by China.
Show up, or
exactly,
is actually going to show up, and they're going to get to shoot their political enemy.
No, it's going to be the cop that you see stopping traffic while you bring your kid to school. That's going to be stacking up on your door. And unless you want that, you need to fight the political battle. And I don't think anybody, when it comes down to it, actually wants that. Nobody wants to shoot their neighbor. I mean, if you do, go see a therapist, but you probably can't because healthcare is expensive. Like, I don't think anybody actually wants that. And if you really want to avoid that, you need to think long term. And if you're thinking long term, the solution is to get more people into the gun community so that you can have people fight that battle for you on the other side. Because people don't listen to you as a conservative talking to a Democrat, because they're so used to getting talked down to and belittled and corrected on terminology that like they don't want to listen to that anymore. It's much better to get somebody who knows them and be like, hey, like, guy's got a point. He's saying it like an idiot, but he's got a point.
So kind of going back to this Trump example of Trump picking up RFK and picking up a bunch of his support, when I saw him do that, my inclination was to see that really more as a business move than a political move, even though it looks like a political move and it has the political effect. Thinking of Trump as probably somebody who's primarily a businessman, and seeing somebody who has what you want and you have something to offer that person, and saying, how can we work out a deal where you give me what I want, I give you what we want, and if we possibly could look at each other in the same way, because I'm picturing people showing up to the Capitol building to protest one of these laws or whatever, and somebody walks up and they've got their Antifa like stuff on, and then the other guy's like Jesus first, and they walk up and they're like, hey buddy, how are you today? Pretty good. Like, these people
you got
are not
Antifa in my Jesus shirt. You've got
Right.
Jesus shirt in my Antifa shirt. Yeah.
These people are not going to get along unless they see this interaction as primarily transactional. And I don't mean that in like a dehumanizing way. I mean that in we both have a goal here to stop this one piece of legislation. So I don't need to like you. I don't need to care about what you care about. I don't need to like, from the Jesus point of view, I don't have to like kiss your feet and wash your feet with my tears and all that. And from the Antifa point, like, I don't have to like bow down to you and your Jesus. And we just need to put aside our differences enough for the afternoon where we're all going to be here saying, we don't want this, but that's really hard to do, because it tends to be the people who are a little bit more, let's say, radical that are willing to show up on a Tuesday afternoon in the first place.
Like, I went to Boston on a Wednesday, or no, I think it was a weekend, for a rally. I was in Massachusetts already, and I went for a rally that they were doing to protest their governor's newest gun control legislation. And I was like, I had a speech, I spoke and everything. It was awesome. The guys who put it on were great. I think they got kind of steamrolled by their speakers. I don't know. It ended up turning it. They wanted people to pre-submit their speeches to make sure they weren't going to go crazy and say anything bad. And then there were some people who spoke that, like, I met up with a friend of mine there, one of the followers of the page who I met for the first time there. And we ended up walking out as the entire crowd was chanting America first, because that's what it kind of like devolved into, unfortunately. And my speech was about, arming marginalized people and getting people on board with this, and, passing this law ignores the people who are affected the most by gun violence. And I had people who came up to me after the fact and were like, thank you for saying that. Like, I was waiting for somebody to say that. Thank you for saying that. And then it turned into a shit show after that. But I said to people, like, we need to get people out to these things. We need to go to these things. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Most of the people, Gun Website says I watched that rally live. I'm
Gun
sorry.
Website would be the guy that's watching that rally live. That guy's an encyclopedia. Yeah,
but I think that kind of, it speaks to the point, I guess, I'm trying more humans to understand on either side of the aisle is we have to understand, like, if I show up to a gun rally, I don't want to hear about abortion. I don't want to hear
100%.
I don't want to hear about healthcare. I don't want to hear about anything. I'm here for guns. This is the problem with Rocky Mountain gun owners. A while back, when Dudley Brown was in charge of it, is he very famously took gun owners' money and then used it to make anti-gun, anti-gay marriage videos and commercials. He did it out east, right? Like, the commercials weren't here in Colorado. He funded them through NAGR somewhere else. You guys will have to fucking fact check me on that shit. But he was in hot water for taking money and then using it for anti-gay stuff. And like, well, I don't give a fuck about the gay shit. I gave you money for gun stuff, right? Like, from a base perspective. So this is the problem, is there's going to be a march here in the state of Colorado at the state capitol. And I can almost see it is you will have a handful of liberals show up. And what the people speaking are going to say is, fuck the Democrats, fuck the Democrats, fuck the Democrats. Like, we have to, whether we like it or not, we have to quantify that. Not Democrat doesn't mean anti-gun, and Republican doesn't mean pro-gun. You could say anti-gun, and not fuck all the Democrats, because you forget the
Yeah.
people that are probably going to save us here are the Democrats that are like, yeah, you know what, this is batshit crazy. We're not going to let this bill go through, because even for me, this is batshit crazy. But when you're outside of their workplace saying fuck you Democrat, at some point that Democrat's gonna be like, why the fuck am I even helping you?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, dude, I have this conversation like ad nauseum. I feel like it comes up at least once a week. Whenever other people on the opposite end of their perceived political spectrum, I get people all the time that just like loosely say things like, the right doesn't think I have the right to, the right doesn't want me to exist, or people on the right, coming from a trans person, or somebody from the right saying, well, the left wants I literally had somebody today say, the left wants my family and I to die, and they want to take my gun. That's why they want to take my guns. Like, dude, first of all, like, the left and the right do not exist the way that people perceive them like that. The people who say these things do not go outside. They do not touch grass. They do not talk to enough people, because if they did, it just takes talking to enough people to realize that doesn't make sense. And, it's frustrating, because as somebody who sees it often, you want to just, I have to walk this line of looking at somebody and realizing that their own particular experience has crafted the way that they think. It's like most racist people. Most racist people are, I mean, they have shitty beliefs, but like, they probably had one thing that happened to them, or one thing that happened to a family member of theirs, and they haven't had a single example by to go against it that has changed their mind, because they live in a bubble. They live in a shitty racist bubble, and now, in the 21st century, there's no real excuse to be racist, because we've got technology and you can literally look up like 100 reasons as to why you're wrong about any particular thing. But that, for the most part, like, that's why people believe what they believe, because they've been conditioned to, because they're surrounded by people like that, who believe like they do. And as soon as you start talking to people who disagree with you, or even people who agree with you on most things but disagree on like one or two things, you realize, like, I used to be against Obamacare. I used to think Obamacare was communism, and like everyone who was on it was leeches. This was like my cringy earlier years, where I was like, I parroted what the news told me to. And then I met my now mother-in-law, who could only afford healthcare because of Obamacare, because she had a double mastectomy due to her breast cancer. And I was like, wow, she went from a $1,300 a month premium to an $80 a month premium. And I was like, wow, okay, if this one person does not fit the mold of the people that I thought my stereotype was for, then maybe I don't know anything. Maybe I'm not right about this, and maybe I need to think twice about this. And you just use that same logic for literally everything else. That, like, hey, you just need to talk to one person who does not fit the mold that you've put them in, and it completely blows apart all of your preconceived notions about your belief. That's what it should do. The scientific method, we learned that in middle school. You have a hypothesis, and when you don't have evidence to support that hypothesis, you change your hypothesis. You don't find new evidence.
Yeah, so
I don't know why I got onto that topic.
Well,
I think that was off topic.
Well, it was kind of in that conversation of like bringing these two sides together. I think there's like the person who's willing to show up on a weekday at the Capitol and wear a T-shirt advertising their beliefs, I would say is probably not going to be your typical reasonable person. I don't care what the belief is. Like, if you're there and it's plastered on your chest, like, blah, like, blah, I don't even want to put a name on it. Just anything like that is not the typical person. You're just going to sit down and be like, well, have you thought about this? And they're like, like that's
of course I thought about it. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we get the reasonable person to show up at 2:00 on a Tuesday afternoon to the Capitol? Can we
You're
get
gonna have to make it like, you're gonna have to give them time off to do it.
I know.
And that's like, because most people work. Yeah,
Right.
Unless you're retired, or I have a weird job. Like I work 24 hours on and I have 3 days off.
Mhm.
So like I'm able to do that kind of
Right.
thing. Most people
So
can't.
I use the Capitol as like the most extreme example, but really it's like showing up. It's it's organizing, it's contacting, it's donating, it's whatever. But can you get the reasonable person? Because we get people all the time in our classes who are not MAGA, who are not, extreme left, who are just regular people who decided that it's time for them to have a handgun in their life.
Mhm.
And you could not tell one way or the other talking to them what their politics are, because it's not who they are. They're just themselves. They have some political beliefs probably, but you can't derive that by just having a casual conversation with them. We need everybody that we can possibly get to show up. And I think the reasonable person really wouldn't care about what you think about healthcare or gay rights or taxes or any of that stuff. If you could get them to say, hey, if you don't support right now, if you don't show up right now and do this thing, you might not be able to keep that handgun in your house. You might not be able to, your kids might not have that right when they become adults. And so it's important that you stand up. I don't care what else you believe or care about or anything like that. We need to show up and we need to let these people know that we don't want this. But that's the difficult thing, is a reasonable person is not the typical person who's going to show up and do that thing. But
I don't know how to convince people that, like, because I think most people feel apathetic because they don't really feel like their effort means anything.
Mm-hmm.
And even so, like we had a rally in Connecticut, and I never go to these, but I went to it because it was the last rally in Connecticut where open carry was going to be legal. And I don't agree with open carry. I think it's stupid, but the principle of the fact is you should be able to carry a gun openly. It was a whole bunch of other things also. And I went to it, and it was a Saturday, and there were like 150 people there at the Capitol of Connecticut on a Saturday where it wasn't raining. It was a little overcast, but it wasn't freezing. There was like 150 people there out of how many millions of people in this state who disagree with the law?
Sports ball people playing?
I don't know. I don't watch sports ball. But that's the thing. Like you make it easy for people and they still don't do it. I think it's because people don't believe that their efforts mean much of anything.
Well, but I think we need to understand that they do. One thing that I very famously said a long time ago is Guns for Everyone. We offer free concealed carry classes. We've been doing this for quite some time. We've instructed over 100,000 students.
Awesome.
We've done a lot. And one of the things that I said a very long time ago is that basically our classes it became redneck welfare. Where like it was like expected. This guy needs to give it to me for free and drive me there and feed me while I'm there and massage my fucking feet and do all this. Just like this is we do it because we. What's that?
Give daily affirmations.
Yeah. Like it just it wasn't enough that we were giving the free concealed carry classes. It was just like, no, you owe it to me to give me the free concealed carry. Like I'm doing this because I don't believe the government should be involved with this process in any way, shape, or form. Like this shit doesn't magically happen. I had one guy ask me in class, is like, how come the chairs are not that comfy? I was like, because you don't fucking donate enough. Like that's why.
This is so
the
wild.
Conditions of the classroom are a direct result of the participation of the people in the classroom.
Yeah, and I only bring this up because that's the state of mind of the gun people right now. Is just let me do the least amount of work. But I want the most amount of effort, and it's weird because if we're talking about left and right, the right is usually the one like fuck welfare and fuck taking care of your neighbor, and from a political standpoint from that side. But when it comes to this, it's just like no, somebody else should do it for me. GOA should do it for me. The NRA should do it for me. It's just like no, like that's whether you like it or not, that's political welfare. You're expecting somebody else.
Yeah, it's like people ratting out illegal immigrants to ICE. It's like if you want them out so bad, go and remove them, but you won't. Like if that was ever the case, like they really want people to stack up on their neighbor's door, but they won't do it. And not to say that that's a civilian's job, because like if somebody's robbing a bank, like, and they disagree with the robbing of the bank, I personally don't, because it's the bank's money, not the people's. But if like if a civilian was like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, I would not expect a civilian to be like, stop it right there, mister. Like that. Yes. Okay. That's what cops are for. But it is the idea that there's always going to be somebody else to do the thing that I don't want to do. It's the same with the gun control folks. There, so many people, not all of them, but so many people who are pro gun control are anti-cop, but then we'll expect the cops to go do the red flag laws on people to take the guns away. And, and there are so many people who are anti-cop, but think cops should be the only ones with guns. Like it's, I know that's a separate thing, but it's a very it's the same kind of phenomenon that happens when it's the reason they tell you that in an emergency there needs to be somebody who points to somebody and says, hey, you call 911. Because when you say somebody call 911, nobody calls 911, because everybody assumes somebody else will do it. And it's the same thing with politics. It's the same thing with literally whatever group thought thing you want to think about. If you see somebody getting their ass kicked in the crowd, and you see people, they did an experiment years ago in New York City where they had somebody simulating a sexual assault in an alleyway, and they counted the number of people who walked away, who walked by, watched, didn't do anything. And when the people were interviewed after the fact, they said, well, I assume somebody else had already taken care of it, or I assume somebody else had already called 911, because they just assume it's already being taken care of. And the reality is, when you have enough people assuming that, nothing happens. And that's
and I think
how
also,
our political system works.
Yeah. And like kind of to Edgar's point, or to somebody's point, I don't know if it was in the chat or not. People don't believe that their efforts matter. So the whole, like, I'm not going to call 911 because somebody else probably did is kind of like saying that their effort is not important to deal with this issue. Whether you believe it's ineffective or you believe it's not necessary, the result is the same. You didn't do anything. I think that a messaging issue that activists have is that people don't believe that those actions are actually going to do something. And I've told almost every class for the last 5 years, you can do something. It will work. Mm-hmm. If we all take the attitude that this will work, it will work. But if you take the attitude that somebody else is going to do it, or my efforts don't matter, then boom, you've already predetermined the outcome, and the outcome is you lose. And so I was in that other text group I was talking about earlier, and somebody was talking about a rally and all these things, and somebody in this text group, and this text group is intended for people who are activists, people who are willing to actually do something. And this one guy says, it doesn't even matter. Why even waste your effort? I'm like, what the fuck? How did you even get in this group?
Who let you in here?
Who let you in here?
Nice try, Diddy. Nice try, Diddy.
Yeah, nice try, Diddy.
What does that mean? I'm sorry.
Nice try, Diddy?
Yeah, I see it everywhere.
Puff Daddy?
But what does nice try, Diddy mean?
So it's just a bullshit statement that people say instead of nice try, fat boy, or nice try, fat, like just nice try, Diddy. Like he tried to get you, he tried to fuck you, he tried to baby oil you.
Tried to slide in.
I hope that's what it means, because that's what I think it means.
So, like, it used to be the case that politicians were actually afraid of the mob. Yeah. And I don't mean to try to generate a violent mob, but the mob was a representation of that there are more of us than there are of you. And we can inflict our will upon you one way or another. Like, I'm not saying we should all show up to the Capitol with our rifles and get ready to shoot people. I mean, we have the power. We have the power. We are voluntarily surrendering it when we don't get involved. When we don't.
Bro, the first time a politician became a millionaire after voting to remove funding from social welfare programs, there should have been a mob. Like they're Nancy Pelosi should have a mob. She shouldn't be allowed to leave her house. She should have a mob of people around her house every fucking day. And
What's
she
cra-
should like
You know
not
what's
be allowed to
crazy to
even
me is that
DoorDash groceries. But
you find out where these politicians live, and you're like, really? Like, there's no gate. There's
there's
like,
nothing like you got to be really confident. But like
Yeah,
that's the thing, yeah, because people are apathetic. People don't like I don't know. Yeah,
Well, and
I'm
now
not going to
it
go
was-
down that road because we're
Yeah.
we got an
well, it's like
audience.
I'm not recommending it. I'm not
No.
recommending people use violence, but you have to understand that
No, we never
people are violent when they are pushed far enough.
Yeah,
And the fact is that people are just content to not push themselves or to be pushed
dude.
towards standing up
had-
for themselves, to the point where politicians
Yeah.
can just live in a condo on some random street in San Francisco, and these
Yeah, they
politicians
can
will
walk
fuck
out to
over-
get their mail.
right, and they'll fuck over all these people, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, they live right over there." Like,
Dude,
yellow.
people in general have this feeling of look how people drive. People have this feeling of immortality
yeah,
when they think that they have protection. We had somebody tonight comment on. I posted a picture of some stickers we have that say "Be queer, shoot straight," and it's like pride flag, ARs, and stuff. Somebody commented this like just vitriolic trash about trans people, and I said like that. I essentially said like that's a really like cocky statement for somebody whose full name is on their profile and whose personal address is Googleable.
Mhm.
Like I just Googled this dude's name and all of his information came up. And I was like, wow, if that was my online profile persona,
Yeah.
I would be very reserved in what I commented on in public. But it's the same thing with these politicians. Like, yeah, they don't live with armed guards. They don't live in gated fortresses because they can do, I mean, essentially what they want. And because of our 24-hour news cycle, because of the algorithm, because of clickbait and gotchas, we move on to the next thing quicker than we have time to like ruminate and get angry about these things. And all it takes is another Luigi. Not that I'm saying we should do that. I'm just saying hypothetically, it would be easy to replicate. And all it takes is look what happened to all the health insurance CEOs after that happened. They all made took their information off their websites. And like that, you could say that that's only symbolic, but I guarantee you that there was a very physical reaction that those people had after that happened.
I think it's a testament to the safety of our society and the fact that of all the gun owners out there, like one of them decided to do that. Like we are a relatively stable group of people,
dude. Yeah, only one, and like, and he was the most like Chad bro dude that you could have picked out. There are way more people that I would have seen. Like if I saw somebody walking down the street or like picked out of a lineup, I'd be like, that guy's the guy. Like that guy's the dude who's going to end up on the news. But no, it's the dude who was like chiseled abs, tech bro, like definitely slays, like that's it, not like the basement dwelling incel dude who's just like fiending to like commit violent acts based on his Reddit post history. It's this dude. And yeah, I think that says a lot about one, like where people's heads are at. And two, like it's not going to be, I don't know. I don't know.
Gun websites, as always, has good comments and good questions. A lot of you guys have had good comments and questions, so I don't want to minimize that and discourage that. This is how you can tell I've been hurt by my parents. I don't ever want anybody to feel bad. But gun websites brings up this topic of influencers. And I do believe that they have fucked it all up. We have one here in the state of Colorado, and she's batshit crazy. She's fucking worthless. But on the internet, especially here on Twitter, she's got a pretty decent following. And I have no issues saying that she's fucking anybody who has met. I think Isaac just recently had an encounter with her, and he's like, holy shit, I don't think he understood the level of batshit crazy.
Who is this?
Well, you'll just find her. here in Colorado.
Okay. All right.
Let's just say she thinks highly of her physique. And she's like the banana that gets duct taped to the wall, and it goes for $3 million. But let's be honest, like there's way better art out there and shit that actually means something and is meaningful and is but you have a lot of influencers on the internet that have a huge following that sway and make people believe like, oh, the shit is getting done because they're a banana on the wall with duct tape, and everybody knows that they're full of shit, but they're still like, oh, let's follow this thing that doesn't really do anything in the community, doesn't really push for anything. You're just on social media saying that you did the stuff. And so how does that affect? Do you guys fight that? Do you like, how do you combat it? Is there a way to fucking combat that other than just fucking call them out whenever the fuck we can? Because I do think that's a detriment to all of us, right? Like Colion Noir is fucking awesome, but like I've never seen him show up to a Capitol and do stuff. There's other people that we command. It's not to talk shit about him because it's not their game. Like Colion Noir, that's not he. I don't think he's ever pretended to be a lobbyist or anything like that. That's just an example. He's one of the big boys in the example world. This other lady here in the state of Colorado, for sure, she's full of fucking garbage. So how do we fight this? How do we combat this? Because it takes away from the message. It takes away from the following. It takes away from, because now Isaac and I are just ugly dudes with no titties. Like we're not.
I'm working.
The struggle's real. The patriarchy's working against us.
I'm working on the titties.
So it's do you guys come across it, or you just don't give a fuck, or like how do we fight this? I'm partly asking the almost 600 humans who are watching this on how.
Let me add on to Edgar's question here, or kind of add something to that.
Decipher my ESL.
Well, so influencers gather attention, and resources tend to go up to a single point. Like that's law of nature. And attention is obviously one of those things. Like influencers gather attention, and that's where, you know, they gain more and more, and they get to the tippy top, and now they're Mr. Beast or whatever. But the other thing I think that flows up, what I think is Edgar is explaining, is responsibility goes up. So I can relieve myself of responsibility if I believe an influencer is exercising responsibility. So the influencer saying, hey, I'm up at the Capitol today doing this thing, and everyone's like, good job, way to go. Not why am I not there? You know, like we've allowed all of the energy to just go up to that point and relieve ourselves of any responsibility to do that thing. That's kind of what I was hearing Edgar saying, or at least what I was thinking when Edgar was asking that. So how do we combat that? Does that happen on the left side of the aisle as well? What do we do about that?
I think the more people that, you know, I think this goes back to the idea that your efforts do mean something. The more people that speak up and hold these people accountable, the better results we're going to have with them. I don't know who was solely responsible for this, but like, I won't name names, but there was a pretty popular gun tuber who used to be the cameraman for another gun tuber who was even more popular, who made a transphobic joke in one of his videos, kind of like likening trans people to school shooters. And we made a video about it. A bunch of other people posted it. You know, in more artistic ways condemning that. And recently the dude issued a statement saying like, essentially like, hey, this didn't land the way I thought it did. I thought it was going to. Didn't quite apologize for it.
Sorry for telling a joke that didn't get laughs. Is that?
Dude, that's essentially what it was. It said, you know, like he even used the phrase like, I don't hate people, I hate sin. And usually that's a cop out.
He's the Lucas Bakken fan then.
Probably. But you know, I always hope, like, part of me wants to hold space for people to make mistakes and realize they made a mistake and come back. And because I think everybody makes mistakes and grows. But anyway, aside from the point, he, with enough pressure, this dude came out and was like, okay, if he wasn't going to outwardly say that he was wrong, at least realize that, like, hey, okay, maybe this wasn't the thing to say. And I think if more people did that with these influencers, then we would either see them start participating in the ways that we want them to participate, or we'd see them leave and more people would come up and start doing the things that everybody wants those people to do.
Yeah, because I think we need to understand. I said this recently when I made a video about how RMGO has failed and We the Second here in the state of Colorado has failed. Absolute clickbait. You guys should go watch that now that we have more eyes here. But it's this, and I said this several years ago. You can find the video when I spoke at the Capitol, at the U.S. Capitol a while back. It was like it doesn't matter, and this is really when a lot of influencers started to not want to hang out with me anymore, because I said that, like, who the fuck cares if us three show up to the Capitol if the 600 people don't, the 600 people that are watching this don't show up? Who the fuck cares if us three, right, our congressperson or representatives or mayors or whatever, if the 600 that are watching don't? Who the fuck cares? Like, it's sure we can speak to my one little letter matters, but like, just because Edgar did it doesn't mean the other 600 people shouldn't. And collectively, it means absolutely nothing if Coleon does something, if batshit crazy lady banana duct tape to the wall does something once, or Ava, who does a pretty decent job at doing shit. RMGO, they do a pretty decent job. Who the fuck cares though if they do it, if their tens of thousands of followers don't follow suit?
Yeah. So there's a gun shop owner in the Springs. He owns Spartan Defense. His name is Teddy, and he has been aggressive about getting people to actually do something. So effective leadership is getting people to commit actions that are necessary for the benefit of the group. And so I want to call him out as somebody who, he's in the influencer space, like, he's got a big YouTube channel and everything, but behind the scenes, he's very active in getting things done and soliciting and delegating and working really hard, and very tireless, very high energy dude. And so you can do both. Like, you can be the influencer and be an effective person at getting the 600 people to show up. But we're very prone to just default to send our attention in one specific direction. And that person who's getting all that attention maybe isn't the most qualified person to be in charge of the message, it's our job. It's our job to be in charge of the message. It's your job to speak to the people in your community. We talked about earlier this whole idea of changing hearts and minds and humanizing things. Like, one of the most effective things that you can do to get humanizing around guns is to invite somebody to the range and show them what safe use of firearms is, and talk and educate them to the best of your own ability, whatever that is, and just let them know this is what we're talking about right here. And that requires effort on your part. I don't care what influencers you follow; they're not going to take that person to the range. It's your job to take that person to the range.
Yeah, I've heard so I literally just, this is my own little anecdote. I just hung out with my buddy yesterday who is a self-professed Bernie bro. But he's an Army vet. He was a medic, avid gun owner, very into guns. He's been taking people to his gun range, the one that he's a member of, 1-on-1, 2-on-1. That sounds a little weird when I say it like that, but he's been taking people. I said that, I was like, I don't know if you're supposed to add numbers to that, but he's been taking people who have never touched guns before, people, apathetic to guns, people who are interested for the first time, trans people specifically. He was asking about if I had any resources for somebody who was trans to learn how to shoot guns with like somebody who they could relate to, or somebody who wasn't going to treat them like ass. And he's just like, I use the term converted, so many people this way just by using his own time. And granted, not everybody has the equity of the time to do that, but you can do that in so many other ways. I mean, if you're going to the range, nothing, it doesn't take much to ask somebody to come with you. And you can even say like, yeah, they can pay for themselves, but most ranges will allow you to bring a guest, as long as like you vouch for them. You have to sign a waiver, they sign a waiver, things like that. And who doesn't like shooting with their friends? Somebody that they're friends with anyway, I have way more friends who don't own guns than friends who do own guns. And, I if I went to the range more, I could probably do that, but usually I'm the one who's dragged to the range, unfortunately, just with the way my schedule is. But yeah, that's huge. I love that you said that, because I'm a huge proponent of telling other people to do it, not quite doing it myself. It's
well,
maybe
it's
when
a
my
culture
daughter
thing.
gets
Like,
a little older.
That's another thing is a lot of these challenges really are cultural challenges within groups, not just the right-leaning gun group, but just cultural challenges across these groups on how do we build bridges. And we can't rely on other people to build these bridges. We could take advantage of things when they happen. If some big YouTube influencer all of a sudden said, like, hey, I want you to know I'm going to this LGBT event and I'm going to go spread the good word, or I'm going to share what I have. And people are like, you're a piece of shit. And he's like, I don't care. I'm still going to do it. If as an influencer, that could be potentially very useful, and the same on, it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still not the influencer that's going to make change happen. It's still up to us to make change happen on the individual level, on the political level, and just on that interpersonal level, let people know that this topic is for everybody. This is, I don't care who you are. If you believe that you have a fundamental right to defend yourself, and you have a fundamental right to the tools to do that self-defense, then we have something we agree on. We have at least one thing we agree on.
100%, dude.
We're kind of winding down. Been at it for 2 hours now.
2 hours.
I want to be mostly respectful of time. We usually don't give a shit about how long we go. But I think we've hit the high notes. I think we've got a good starting point. Hopefully we do this again. And I do want to give you the opportunity to say more words about a better way, or maybe a final thoughts. Before you do say that, I do want to shamelessly plug our legal fund. We're suing the state of Colorado over some bullshit. You guys can go check that shit out at gunsforeveryone.com/legal fund. There's a sweet little rifle that Isaac has graciously donated so that we can raise funds for that.
Commie rifle.
Commie rifle. Yep. It's a
rare
rifle.
commie rifle.
What is it?
It's a Vepr 7.62x54.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So if you guys want to help us out, fight anti-gun stuff, please help us out if you guys can. Check that shit out. You could also enter the raffle. For legal reasons, there are ways for you to enter for free. You have to go hike the Manitou incline, and then I'll meet you up at the top.
There'll be a turtle up there with a raffle ticket in his mouth, and you have to say what you learned on the way up the hill.
So for legal reasons, that's how you would get your free entry. But anyways, I appreciate you being here. Say the things that you need to say, and thoughts or anything that you want to wrap up with Jordan.
Yeah, no, I just appreciate everything you guys do and everything you're doing. And I had an awesome time talking to you. This was great. I'm glad you guys invited me on. And yeah, we should have you guys on our podcast. It's not live. It's not as exciting, but well, I mean, arguably, maybe I'd say it's exciting, but it's not live.
Are there more mustaches?
There's a beard. There's
Okay.
a beard. It's
No mustache, just beard.
just
So you guys flipped it?
ooh, no. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because that'd be fucking incredible if he
Yeah.
just went the beard and
Just
and
no,
you
like
did-
just the straight Amish mustache,
Yeah,
but with a little upwards here,
yeah,
just
for sure.
like just the goatees without the mustache.
So he basically completes the facial hair for you.
yeah. When we put our faces together, that's how we fit.
I
It's
want to
like
say
docking,
a
but with
big
faces.
thanks to everybody who participated in the chat, even the shit talker at the very beginning.
Yes,
One of the things
that was weird. That was so quick.
it was
Like
very
we
fast.
just went live, and that person was like all fired
So
up.
we're big proponents of let's have the conversation, even if you don't agree, even if you want to express your anger and whatever, like everybody's welcome. You might get shit talked back to you, but we're big proponents of having the conversation, especially publicly. So
Yeah. I appreciate everybody that was here. Go check out A Better Way 2A. What's the website? Just that betterway2a.com or
Yeah, betterway2a.com. It's a Better Way 2A on Twitter, Instagram. I don't know. We're on Blue Sky too. I don't know what it is. It's the same thing, but like .blue. I don't know. I repost on there. I don't really interact with people too much on there, but everywhere it's a Better Way 2A.
It's so fucking much. A lot of
YouTube.
yeah. The YouTubes. So go check them out. Go talk shit to their face, not on the internet. Because when you talk shit,
don't show up on my house.
Yeah, for sure. Not a good idea there.
I'm usually public about where I'm going to be, though.
Yeah, you did mention at the beginning. Once you see humans in real life, all of that shit kind of goes away. And I think that was the point of all of this is once you actually have a real conversation with real human beings, not behind a fucking keyboard or a phone, it all becomes real. So hopefully you guys got something out of this. I know I did. I appreciate everybody's time. We shall see you guys next time. And we said it this time. I need to bring this shit back. I used to end all of my little shorts and reels with "wash your ass," and you just reminded me that I need to bring that shit back.
You do.
Yeah.
That's why we have full body deodorant now.
Yeah, no shit.
Washing their ass.
I stopped saying that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Edgar's not